Hello, everyone. Welcome to God's Prepared Warrior Roundtable Live. Hopefully, you guys can hear me over here on YouTube. I know that everybody can hear me over here on TikTok, and they are there and they're coming in. Awesome. All right. So, hey, King Corso, welcome tonight. Glenn, welcome, my friend. Thank you for the 5x5. Saltness, thank you for this 5x5. Scott, thank you for that 5x5. That helps out a lot. You know, I think I am learning, learning all of this technological stuff here. Welcome tonight. Dead Prepper, welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. And we're excited that you're here. Kane Corso, welcome. Salt Miss, my friend, is here. Glenn, Scott Hammer, John, my friend, is here. Welcome tonight, my friend. I am glad you guys are here tonight. I hope you're excited. I hope you're ready. Who else is here? I know there's somebody else here. Who else is here? Oh, Grit and Grace, the Farm Florist, is in the house. Welcome, Grit and Grace. Thank you for joining us also. Yes, so I hope you guys are ready, because you know I've been sitting on this all day today, and we got to talk about this thing. So let's start with the news. Welcome everyone over here on TikTok. I see all of you coming in. Forgive me if I miss you by name, but I'm glad y'all are here. And my moderator might be out today. He had a family emergency, so we're going to be praying for him. All right, so let's get started. Let's get started here with the channel news. Remember, the channel news is all about you guys, because it's not about me. You are the ones that make this channel what it is. I'm just the guy that comes out here and talks, and you guys say, "Hey, for some reason I like this guy. He's got pretty good stuff." So hopefully that's why you're here. So let's look at our numbers. So YouTube, we are at 847 subscribers on YouTube. I'm excited about that. That's pretty cool. We are actually up 10 new subscribers this week, so that's pretty awesome. YouTube, give yourself a hand. That's pretty cool. I think we can definitely do that here, right? So give yourself a hand. That's pretty awesome. Yeah. All right. TikTok. My friends over here on TikTok. Welcome, Bob. Welcome, Judy. Sandy, welcome tonight. We are sitting at 3,782 followers over on TikTok. You should give you guys a hand over here. You guys are super awesome. And we are actually up 14 new followers on TikTok. If you haven't followed my channel, make sure you follow my channel. We're doing some really cool stuff. Facebook, we are sitting at 171 followers on our Facebook page. We have gone up 2 new subscribers. I'll take that. That's awesome. Facebook community, we're at 27 followers. X, we are sitting at 1,045. We're actually down 2 people there on X. Instagram, all right. YouTube. Instagram is right close. So YouTube, we're sitting at 847 followers. Instagram today is at 843 followers, just shy of our total count on YouTube. So hey, I think you guys should start sharing and subscribing over on Facebook. I mean on YouTube, because Instagram's gonna take you by storm. Welcome guys over here on TikTok. Thank you for joining us tonight. So the grand total of new followers and subscribers on our channel is 37. We are up 37 new followers this week. And Scott says, I see 848. All right. That means that we got one more. That's awesome. Thank you, Scott, for that. So yeah, 37 new followers this week. So that's pretty awesome. I'm excited. I'm excited that you guys love the channel, and I just, I want to make sure that we're all prepared, and not just physically but spiritually. And so that's what this channel is about. So thank you guys for your help in that effort. All right, so let's look at some news that you probably might have missed this week, or well, starting today, Monday, right? So let's look at the news. The Polish embassy in Kiev was struck in Russia's large-scale attack overnight. So Russia's large-scale overnight attack in Kiev struck the Polish embassy in the capital. And so what does that mean? Well, you know, I think that's a bad thing. Um, you know, Article 4 has been invoked with what we've been hearing in the news. And NATO is, what's the other article? I think is Article 5 that says, you hit one of us, you hit all of us. So yeah, so I don't know if that goes into that because the embassy was hit. I don't know. Something to watch, right? So keep your eyes on that. I think that's an important piece. I mean, when you talk about, all of the airplanes that have crossed over into Poland, right? That Russia did. That's why we are where we are, with them wanting to invoke Article 4. So yeah, I think Russia is really trying to start a war. I mean, I feel like it's in the thing there. Hey Shelly, welcome tonight. So yeah, so keep that in mind, watch that. I think that's something to really pay attention to, that happened there. Top diplomats, this is the next one. Top diplomats of North Korea and China agree to deepen ties and push back at the United States. So not only are we meeting with when I say we, I don't mean you and I, but United States, right? Not only are we meeting with top rank generals, the other side is meeting together, and they're joining forces. As the article says here, they're deepening their ties and to push back at the United States. And so when I read this article, it talks here about how these foreign ministers of North Korea and China, they have agreed to deepen their ties together. To me, that says that they're digging in, right? Whenever you're going to, I mean, you can apply this to anything. You're going to play baseball. You're going to dig in to hit the ball. You're going to dig in to run the bases. You're going to do all of that. That's what they're doing here. They're digging in so that they can push back against the United States. And so, yeah, so this is another thing to watch. We can't keep our eyes off of these quote unquote fires around the world, right? I mean, we have to make sure that we are paying attention to those things that are happening. Because let's be honest, right? They're not going to tell us, that, October the 3rd, we're going to go to war with so-and-so. They're not going to tell us that, right? They're just going to wake up one day and they're going to say, let's do it and let's go. And they're going to do it and we're not going to know. And so, it's important for you to be paying attention to all of that so that you're not caught off guard and you're kind of in the know somehow, right? So just kind of pay attention to that. I think that's, yeah, Debt Prepper, you're right. It seems like everyone wants to fight. It is. I mean, I think that change, because of Donald Trump coming into office, and you know, I think this change, because it's a different Donald Trump that we're seeing from the first time, is the thing that is pushing everyone to that end. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I think sometimes Donald Trump likes to poke the beehive, right? And so I'm just saying, you're totally right, Dead Prepper. I think that's true. So yeah, so that's happening. They're digging in deep, so pay attention to that. I found this article. This is from the BBC. It says Afghanistan telecom blackout. The Taliban shuts off the internet, and I thought this was interesting. I'm going to read this here for you, and I want you guys to think about what if, right? It says here the Taliban in Afghanistan have imposed a nationwide shutdown of telecommunication weeks after they began severing fiber optic internet connections to prevent what they call immorality. Um, so the country is currently experiencing a total connectivity blackout. Internet's out. It's done, right? And they don't have any mobile phone service. They don't have mobile internet. They don't have satellite TV. All of that has been disrupted across Afghanistan. And I get it. These are the Taliban's. Fernando, why do we care? Um, I, I, I look at this as a situation of what if for us, right? What if that was to happen to us, right? If the United States suddenly went crazy and our leaders said, you know what? Not only are we going to put troops in the streets in your neighborhood, but we're going to go ahead and shut down the communication system, right? This is why it's so important for you guys to see this and to ask that question, what would I do? Because in the event that we are in some kind of internet blackout, communication blackout, whatever kind of blackout, do you have a comms plan? Do you have a communication plan? What does that look like? Do you have a plan for your family? Because I'm going to be honest with you, if you don't have that plan, when that thing happens and it hits, you're going to be cut off, right? And so if your family lives in another state, you're not going to have communication with them at all. This is why it is so important for you to have a comms plan. I've made several videos on all of my equipment on that I have for my God's Prepared Warrior Frankenstein comm bag, right? I have a video on that. It's titled that, actually. So go search that video out. I also have video about my comms plan and what that looks like, right? What is that sequence? What is that pace plan that I have for myself, right? Now, one of the neat things is over the weekend, this weekend, I got to sit with some of the kids, and my daughter is like, what do we do when poop hits the fan, right? Um, as I was listening to her talk, my heart bounced in my chest like a lot, because it's like they're finally seeing it, right? They're finally seeing it. Now they're asking the questions, what are we going to do, right? And so now it's up to us to sit down and talk about that whole plan. This whole plan I've been working on here for me and my family, maybe now I get to implement it, right? And it's so important for our kids to see, right? You can't make them, but if you can encourage them, if you can keep prepping, and there's going to be a day, like I said before, they're going to ask you, why do you do this? And it's going to be an opportunity for you to be able to share with them all about, why you prep, and hopefully they're going to be able to see that thing. So, there's a small tide turning with some of the kids, and I'm excited about that. So hopefully they'll jump on board with me on that. So yeah, it's important to have that comms plan. It's a case study for control survey communications for various, yeah, plausible threat at New York last week. Yeah, 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 you're right, John. That is true. Immorality, or keeping people in the dark. Saltman says, "Yeah, that's true." That you took the words right out of my mouth. So yeah, that is true. So yeah, so just think about that. This is another thing. What would I do in this situation? I think that's important. Here's the next one. Trump considering supplying Ukraine with long-range missiles, Vance says. So the U.S. is considering a request by Ukraine for long-range Tomahawk missiles. This is what J.D. Vance has said. It also says, however, Vance added President Donald Trump would be making the final determination on the matter, and of course, that is the process, right? But I will totally be honest with you. If we give them those weapons, guess what? They're going to use those weapons, and so they're not just going to give them to them. Hey, just hold these weapons here. Don't do nothing with them. Just hold them. Yeah, right. I wouldn't trust them with that kind of equipment. So that's been asked. Can we have long range weapons? Can you trust us to hold those long range weapons? Yeah, I wouldn't trust them. So think about that. That's one of those, what would I do in that situation, right? Here's the next one. Trump to attend tomorrow's unpredicted gathering of U.S. commanders. So I don't know. I'm pretty sure you guys know about this. But Pete Hegseth has called a meeting of 1-star generals and above for tomorrow, and they're flying in to Quantico. They're in Virginia tomorrow, and they're supposed to have this big meeting. Donald Trump didn't even know about it, right? I don't know if you know that, but there was he was with Pete Hegseth, and they asked him, the media asked him, hey, what about this meeting? And he he was kind of caught off guard, and Pete had to kind of like you know talk about what was happening, and so the media right now is chalking it up to it's going to be a meeting for cause of celebration. I don't know what we're celebrating, but apparently they're supposed to be celebrating something. I don't know if it's we're going to war that they're celebrating or what, but according to the media, that is what is being told to everyone, that it's just a celebratory meeting. Okay, I think that could have been an email, right? So just another thing to watch. Okay, Dead Prepper says, my military sources say the meeting is nothing to worry about. All right. Well, if you got some sources, praise the Lord on that, because the rest of us are like, what's going on? All right. Next one. YouTube to pay 24.5 million to settle Trump lawsuit, and that money is going to go to go to, I guess, work on the let's see, where did I read it? To work on the ballroom that he wants to build. So you know, he said that it's not coming from taxpayer money, but he's using that money that's coming from YouTube, and there's several others. YouTube, I think Twitter. I'm sorry, yeah, Twitter and X is paying him money, and so he's gonna direct all of that money to the new ballroom that they're gonna build. When I was a chaplain on the prison unit that I was working on, we built a chapel building on the unit, and that little bitty building that is probably the size of my house, or smaller, because I have a small house. Um, I think that, yeah, I think we raised $1 million for that building that was going to be built onto the prison property, and so all of that's politics and stuff, and and so I can imagine if he is going to be receiving 24.5 million, that's a lot of money, and a lot of money to go to a ballroom, right? I don't know, just my thoughts. I'm never gonna dance in there, so I don't know why. Yeah, I will go. I will move on. The next one says Portland counselor is an Army veteran, and he calls on service members to reject Portland military deployment. So this guy, his name is Mitch Green, um, commented, or I'm sorry, condemned the deployment of National Guards into Portland in a video on Sunday, and he is encouraging U.S. Military to speak out against Donald Trump's planned deployment of the National Guard to Portland. So he is a veteran, yeah, and I thought that was an interesting story. By the way, guys, all of my news clips that I'm using tonight are actually in the description on the YouTube description page for the video tonight. So you can find all those links there. I posted them there for all of you to see, so that way you can look at them for yourself. The next one is Tropical Storm Imelda is on the warpath towards the United States, but according to the Weather Channel, it is not going to make landfall and on the United States. It will just kind of skirt close to the southeast coast, bringing rain and high surf like the previous one did. So all of you guys over on the southeastern seaboard, just kind of be watchful of that storm, because it's supposed to not come and hit the United States, but it's supposed to kind of go along that side. So just be mindful that rain is on the way, and yeah, all that comes with that. All right, the next one. This is my last one. Government shutdown update. Trump Democrats emerge from the meeting without a deal. And it looks like, they didn't strike an agreement. So we could be headed towards a shutdown. I've never seen a shutdown, so I don't know if this is really a threat. I think, we were talking about this at lunch today. I think, and my friends and I agree. I think that if we, because the only ones that get paid in all of this are the politicians, and they say, oh well, if we shut down, we're not going to be able to pay the military. We're not going to be able to pay them. They're not going to have a salary. And I think what we should do is not pay the politicians, so that way all of this gets settled right away, because everybody will get paid. I think that if you're not gonna pay the military, you shouldn't take a paycheck. So that's just my thought. That's just my soapbox for 5 minutes, and I'm done. Just saying. I think our military should get paid. Glenn says Portland is a power keg. Yes, it is, my brother. It sure is. I saw some videos of some craziness earlier today. Saltman says, oh no, he already said he'd use them as soon as he gets them. Of course, yes. Talking about Zelensky, yes, he would use those. Yeah, he would. All right. Okay, so thank you for listening to the news. Let's go on to our topic tonight. I really want to talk about this for tonight because we are witnessing almost on a daily basis of violence happening in the United States. And that's not a good thing. It's not a good thing at all. We've seen this huge wave of gun violence across our nation in just the last 2 weeks, right? Shootings in churches, casinos, ICE facilities, bars, public spaces, everywhere. These tragedies, they just remind us, right, of, that violence can erupt anywhere at any time. Our mission, and if you guys are new to God's Prepared Warrior channel, our mission as God's Prepared Warriors is to be both spiritually anchored and practically ready for anything, right? We can't be ready for everything, but we can be ready for anything. And we need to be spiritually anchored and practically ready for that. Tonight, I want us to look at this topic. And I really want us to really think about the recent gun violence alert and how do we respond, right? Many channels today talked about staying situationally aware. Wherever you go, right? Church, the store, work, an event, a party, everywhere you go, you need to be situationally aware. You've heard me say millions of times, find the exits, right? Move away from the threat if there's, a threat. I've always talked about that, right? I think another thing we can do that I haven't talked about is maybe you can watch the room, right? Look for unusual behavior, right? Heavy, just maybe a heaviness. Maybe you feel a heaviness where you are. You don't feel good, right? Well, that's your instincts telling you that. And so it's important for you, to listen to that instinct, right? It's important to stay situationally aware. And I think that is, important for all of us to do. So let's look at this. So on the 24th, in Dallas, Texas, an ICE facility was hit. A shooter fired from a rooftop across the street into a van holding ICE detainees. One detainee was offed. Two were injured. The shooter died by suicide, and shell casings were found with anti-ICE propaganda on them. And on the 27th, Southport, North Carolina, a waterfront bar had a shooter shoot from a boat and off 3 people there and injured 5 people. The shooter fled by boat and then was later captured. Same day on the 27th, here in Texas, in Eagle Pass, the Kickapoo Lucky Eagle Casino that we see millions of commercials on here a lot. After a potential event, a shooting happened there at the casino. 2 people were offed, 5 injured. and the suspect was later arrested the following morning. On Sunday, the 28th, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was attacked. The gunman drove his vehicle into the church doors, got off his vehicle, opened fire, and set the church on fire. At least 4 people were off in that event. 8 people were wounded, and the gunman was killed by police. That's a lot. That is a lot. What does this tell us? These incidents that have happened tell us that danger can arise almost anywhere. In worship services, at entertainment venues, workplaces, federal facilities, there is no more safe zone guarantees. You know, back in the day, growing up, it was safe to say that church was a safe zone, right? Even in the movies, right? You know, bad guy, good guy would meet at the church, but it was a safe zone. It was holy ground. You couldn't fight there, right? And so, you know, that's no longer the case anymore. It's like everything is now open and no holds barred, right? And it's you're right, Glenn. It is people violence. You're right. You know, it's John says, sell your cloak and buy a sword. Yes, that's what the Bible says. I totally agree with that. You know, Psalms 144:1. I'm not wearing my dog tags, but that's on one of my dog tags. It says, the Lord prepares my hands for war. So yeah, I mean, we live in this world, and there's no more safe zones. There's not a guarantee of that anymore, right? Many of these attacks are sudden, right? They just, like, all of a sudden they happen in a place that you might not even expect, right? I mean, church, really? But then again, Christians are under attack, right? I mean, that means, you know, preparation and awareness must be built into our everyday life now. You know, when I was growing up, nobody ever talked about situational awareness. Why? Well, because there really wasn't a situation happening, right, to be aware of. It was everybody was doing their thing. But it's not like that today. And I will tell you that we're not going to go back to yesterday. We're not Normal is not coming back anymore, right? Um, it's crazy. And when we look at, and what this also tells us, that motives vary, right? Motives are political now. Motives are personal. Perhaps maybe they're also ideological, right? But from a readiness standpoint, motives often matter less in the moment, right, than recognizing the behaviors before the violence and having a plan. It's so important for us to have a plan. And it's no longer, all we need is a comp plan. All we need is an evacuation plan. No, you also need a plan for active shooter. You also need a plan if rioting breaks out when you're shopping at the dollar store. You need a plan almost for everything, guys. And these are the things that we're living through today, right? What are some things that we can do? We can identify our exits, right? We talk about that. We can find maybe some safe spots, right? If you're entering the building, right? What are those spaces? If there's a crowded space, do you want to be in the crowded space? Probably not. I don't want to be in a crowded space. What if the crowded space is actually where the thing happens, right? What if, right? I think it's important for us to carry basic life-saving tools, life-saving medical equipment. I think we need to have that on us at all times, in our vehicle, in our homes, just on us, right? Maybe in your bag that you take to work, maybe your go bag, right? Your bug out bag. All that should be in there, right? We need to carry those basic things. Tourniquet, those are important. Pressure bandages, those are important. Gloves, those are important. Flashlights, I have a flashlight for every bag. Um, even I would even keep small kits, like maybe you need to somebody is out and you have to help resuscitate them, right? What are the things you need, to help them, right? You need all of those tools. I think it's important for us to move out of our space and move into a training space, move into a space where we practice drills, right? Because we practice mentally run, hide, fight scenarios in our head. What if we practice those things, right? Maybe it's just you getting in your backyard and practicing those scenarios. What would you do? How fast can you run? Have you ever tried to run? I'm not a running person, but I tell you what, if I needed to run, I'm gonna run, as fast as I can. And I think that we need to, including myself, get out and train and run drills and practice, with our tools, and make sure that we know how to use them. If you saw my video today, that's what I talked about a lot, is practicing with those things, right? I think we need to have the physical practice, um, and it doesn't just need to be us. We need to involve our family in those things, right? In our conversation over the weekend, we talked about communication. We talked about, what are we going to do if we have to bug out of the city, because I live in a city, and this city isn't getting better. And so what does that look like for us, right? I think that is so important for us to really begin to have all of these conversations with our family. I think we're at a point where we can't linger anymore. I think, you know we're at a crossroads that we now have to do all of these things. We never had to do them before, but now we have to do them, right? That's what I want everyone to get. We now have to do these things, and we have to be prepared for that situation, because it's not getting any better at all. John Plato says, train for all possibilities. Yes, we have to. We have to do that. And it's not enough to just have the things. It's not. How are you going to know how to use it if you don't practice with it, right? Um, I don't know. I know I do, right? I go hunting, I go fishing, I do all of those things, and I practice. And what are the fruits for me? Well, when I go fishing, I bring home fish. Sometimes I'll release them, but if I'm gonna catch a mess of perch, I'm gonna catch me a mess of perch. If I'm gonna go deer hunting, I'm coming home with a deer. Last time I went, I came home with two. So, you know, um, you got to practice with those things. It's not just good enough just to have them. I mean, why? What's the point then if you're not going to practice with those things, right? I think that um, that's an important thing to understand. What is our spiritual and heart response, right? Well, for all of these situations, we as God's prepared warriors, we need to pray for these folks, right? These families that are affected, those that are injured, the families that lost loved ones, for the first responders, because there were some first responders in some of these instances where they were hurt or injured. Um, we need to pray, right? It's important for us to pray when we see these things. They're going to be awestruck to us. We're going to sit there in awe, like, I can't believe this is happening. And in that same breath, we should automatically go to prayer for everyone that is involved in that place. That's what I do. And we shouldn't let fear dominate our heart, right? We know that because the Bible tells us that we should not fear, right? Because God doesn't even give us that spirit. That we should trust God with those who are broken and those who are injured, and we should trust God with those who also may live in fear, right? It's important for us to do that for others. I think that's so important because it shows love, right? It is an offering of help by praying for someone, right? And that's important, right? Your faith matters not only in crisis moments, but also in how you live your everyday life. And I think that is just so important for us, right? So, situational awareness is so important. We have to have a response plan, right? I want to look at run, hide, fight. If you decide to run, if safe, move quickly, right? That's important. Encourage others, but don't hesitate. If you plan to hide, that's because you can't run, right? Conceal yourself, silence your phone, and lock or barricade doors wherever you are. If you are at the point to where you're actually going to have to fight for your life, this should be the last resort, and you should defend your life with whatever is at hand. I talked very lightly this morning in my video about this, right? Sometimes, for me as an example, right? They won't allow me to wear my big knife to church because it scares people. So, when they told me that, I told the officer, I said, okay, I'll go put it in my truck next to my gun, right? Because I was mad. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So what do you do in that situation? Well, you find anything that's around you that can be used as a weapon. Your keys. When I was in the prison system, they taught us that if you didn't have anything, you ran out of spray, you lost your flashlight, because that was your biggest weapon, especially if you had the D-cell flashlights. You could use your keys as like brass knuckles. And so we trained with keys in the facility that I worked in early on as a correctional officer. We actually learned to fight with our keys. And you can do a bit of damage. I don't have my keys up here, but if you just I have 3 rings on my keys, and it has tons of keys. My wife calls me the janitor, but that's okay. I put my fingers in those 3 rings, and I have a ton of keys on my fist. And it is important that if you're going to be in fight mode, that you defend your life with whatever you have on hand. And I always carry a lot of stuff in my pockets. And, it's not just one knife that I carry. There are several. So I may not have my big knife, but I have another. Don't tell my church team. So we have to have a plan, guys. I think that's so important. Even if we're going to, be without, right? Hey, Nimrod, welcome to the channel tonight. says improvised weapons are everywhere. That's right. Big metal water bottle, um, yeah, with a handle. Yeah, that's a weapon. My coffee cup is a weapon. You're right, especially with the hot coffee that's in it. It can be a weapon, right? Um, so yeah, extinguishers that are hanging on the wall. Heck yeah. Yep. If you want to, if you want to learn how to use improvised weapons, watch what's that movie? Um, dang, I can't even think of the name of the movie now. But it's with the Matrix guy. Yeah, y'all know what it is. Put it in the comments. Um, yeah, ballpoint pen. That's right. We learned that in prison too. If anything, you could use your pen. That does work too. Yeah. So yeah, um, that's an important thing. The next thing is carry life-saving tools, right? Now I'm talking about your medical kits, all of those things. I'm talking about a flashlight. As a matter of fact, my tactical flashlight has pointed ends on the end of it because you could use that as a weapon also. Um, and then carry. I'm going to tell you to carry this, but basic training, right? Self-defense training, basic training, learn it. It's something that you can carry, and it never leaves you. You know that training. I still know all the training I got when I worked as a correctional officer. Pressure point, they taught us pressure point training. I know how to utilize all that stuff, and I utilized it a lot when I worked as a correctional officer. I was part of the ERT team when I was doing that in West Texas, and so you never lose that kind of stuff. It always stays, and if you kind of practice it, it's always at the ready, right? Another thing that we can do in these kinds of situations is we can communicate clearly. If we're able to run, if we're able to hide, we're able to communicate, right? We can call 911. We can, hopefully get somebody there, or at least knowledge that something is happening. Just like this thing that happened at the church, the law enforcement, and I think so because it was also a small town. Law enforcement was there right away, and so it's important, to call 911, right? Also, it's important, talking about communicating clearly, is having a pre-planned family rally point. This is what one of my daughters was talking about over the weekend. What is that rally point? What does it look like for us? I said, I have my rally point. I don't know about you guys. I was just playing, but we have to have a rally point, right? And it needs to be shared with each other. We need to know what do we do, you know where do we get together, how do we get there, right? We all need to have that plan. I've created a plan on how to get out of this place, and not take the main road, because all the main roads are going to be blocked. It is just that simple, right? It's important to be able to communicate. So if you still have uh, good comms, your phones are still working, you can use group text, you can use a family text. We have a family text message that we all talk on, to be able to communicate. What if those go down? Well, hopefully you have a communication plan with radios and things like that. And so, I would encourage you to build that plan. You want to be able to communicate clearly. Thank you guys for joining me over here on TikTok. So, that's important. And then we should respond spiritually, right? In any situation. Paul reminds us, right? In Philippians 4:6, he says, do not worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. I would encourage you, let me challenge you, okay? How often do you pray? Just ask yourself that question. What does that look like? Because if the Bible is telling us that we are not to worry, but instead we are to pray about everything, are we truly praying about everything? We should be, right? We should pray first. Prayer was given to us by Jesus, and prayer is not just a last minute effort, because I'm in this situation. No, it's never that. Prayer is a defensive, or I'm sorry, an offensive weapon, and God has given us that to use. And so Paul tells us, don't worry about anything, but instead pray about everything. So take things to the Lord in prayer, right? Refuse to live in fear. This is the next one. Psalms 27:1 says, the Lord is my light and my salvation. So why should I be afraid? Be ready. That's what I encourage you to do. Be ready. Um, be ready to fight, right? I'm not advocating for violence, but if your life is being threatened and you cannot run or hide, you're going to have to fight, and you're going to have to fight with all of your will to stay alive. And you need to use everything in your resources to win that fight. There's no start overs, there's no returns. In any terrible situation like we've talked about already, you have those three options. And if you have to use the last one, you got to use it, right? Be ready. Not only be ready to fight, but be ready to serve, right? Be ready to comfort the injured. Be ready to pray for the fearful, and be ready to stand strong in Christ. I'm never going to forget. I went to pick up my daughter and one time, and we witnessed a car crash. I think I've told you guys this before. And there was a bunch of kids in this one car, and they were involved in this car accident. The car that hit them left the scene, fled the scene. Other people went to chase that car to bring them back. And we stopped to help these little kids that were injured. And the one that ran to me and my daughter, she had a large laceration here in her forehead. And the only thing at that time I knew to do was to hug her. And I hugged her, and she was crying and crying, and I was praying. My daughter was hovering over us. She was, trying to calm the little girl down, and she was praying with us. And I mean, it was a thing. That was life changing for me to see that. And it's important for us to be ready to serve, to be ready to comfort the injured, and just to be ready to pray for them. I think that's just such an important thing, even after the fact, right? So, guys, I want you guys to know that we have to be ready, um, because this stuff is going to continue to come. We're not going to see an end, because the Bible tells us about it, right? And I think all of us need to start training. We all need to start prepping. If you're not prepping yet, I don't know what you're waiting for, because normal is not coming back. And it's so important for us to be ready, with food, with water, in case they shut down the world. We're going to need all of those things. And so I would rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So I'm just saying, be God's prepared warrior. God has given you a life, a family to be responsible for. Do it. Be responsible for you and your family. And let's get to prepping. All right, guys. Thank you for joining my live tonight. I want to thank all of you for being here with me. And I'm just thankful to continue to see you guys on a Monday. And let's keep praying. God is in the mix of all of this, and I know He has a plan. Let's just continue to pray for our world, because our world needs Jesus big time, and just as much as I need Jesus all the time myself. So let's keep praying, let's keep prepping, and remember, stay vigilant, stay prepared, guys. Thank you for joining me tonight. Have a blessed night. Praying for all of you. God bless.